Thank you so much for coming back to our community for the 4th season of the Get Set podcast.
And if you're brand new to the pod, welcome. We couldn't be happier that you've tuned in with us.
This season, we tackle the art of multi-hyphenate and how to make networking work for you.
Speaking of networking, we have major news coming soon. We can't spill just yet, but when we do, the tea will be piping hot.
So hot. I can't wait.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Old Girls Entertainment and join our community over on Patreon at patreon.com/oldgirlsentertainment for our brand new After Hours special where we debrief some of our favorite takeaways from each episode with our fabulous guests this season.
I don't do these for just anybody.
Oh, we are so honored. Welcome to season 4 of the Get Set podcast, an Old Girls Entertainment production. We are so excited to be here on the pod today, sharing our experiences as women in the TV and film industry. It's your co-hosts here, Monique Schwaneman and
Jessica Payne, and we have with us today another brilliant multi-hyphenate with some exciting news to share about our upcoming film, Your Night is My Day, which will be having its world premiere at the Mill Valley Film Festival later this week. Our guest this week is Jen Sall.
Jen is a writer, director, and producer. She's also a BAFTA, PGA, and Television Academy member. Jen is committed to creative work that is thought-provoking and sparking conversation, and has official selections in Oscar-qualifying Cleveland and Cinequest film festivals. And fun fact, she's originally from DC and has spent time abroad in both Rio and Rome, where she learned 5 languages and worked as an interpreter at a David Bowie concert.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited. Welcome, Jen. So in your own words, will you give us a little rundown of who you are and where you call home?
Sure. Hi. So nice to meet you both, and thanks for having me on. I'm really excited about this. This is my first podcast ever. So
Yes.
Love it.
Celebrating.
Excited and nervous, all the same. So I'm based in Los Angeles. I'm originally from DC, and it's true. I did an exchange program in in Rio when I was in high school. I went one summer and had such a good time. My family stayed in touch and went back the next summer. And then, yes, I have an affinity for language. And so in college, I studied Italian, and then I ended up living in Rome and studying cinema there. And yes, I did work at a David Bowie concert and got to sit at this enormous table with David Bowie and a bunch of people before his sound check. And I'll never forget because he had tea and oranges and then he went off and did his sound check. So it's a very memorable moment in my life.
That's absolutely
so cool.
Incredible.
Thank you.
So how did you get started? So you went to school for cinema in Rome, you just said. How did that, from there, how was that transition into the wild, into the world?
And just to clarify, I went to the American University of Rome to study, but as a part of it, there was classes with Italian students and American students. So I was taking classes with the Italians, and there were some Italian cinema, but also we were doing art history where they would be like, okay, at 10 o'clock today, meet at the Coliseum at this, you're on the site art history. So it wasn't a film school per se. It was just a normal university, but there were film classes there as well.
That's incredible though. Just like the multicultural aspect, and I'm sure it's influenced your writing and everything. So, which of your hyphenates did you get into first?
Well, first I got into PR and publicity.
Right.
That was my way in, and digital strategy at the time. And it was just when it was starting to really percolate. And so that was my entry point in. But at the same time, I was trying to find a way to be more of a creator and less of a promoter, so to speak. Yeah. And so that kind of took a lot of twists and turns. I was in-house at a big company. I was also doing, after that, some things for different celebrities. I was fortunate enough to be one of the years at Sundance, like an accredited publicist and doing Sundance premieres. For that, I'll never forget, I did Greg Araki's White Bird in a Blizzard with Shailene Woodley, which was a really amazing time. It was right before she just blew up. And all the while, like really wanting to be, like I said, more of a creator than a producer. And I think one of the things that was like maybe like a tipping point getting me like heading into that direction was in the heyday of Funny or Die. I had an idea, and I got a bunch of, like, as a producer does, I started like, I have this idea and let me talk to this person I know who's a director. And then that person was like, oh, I know this guy who wrote on That 70s Show. You guys should talk about this idea. And then I talked to him and he really liked it. And then I got a few more people together, and then I found a location, and then I reached out to a bunch of people to see if they might, because it was comedy, like they might be willing to act in it. And so basically that project was called Cafe Attitude. It was like a farce on cafe gratitude.
Yeah,
And
I've been there. It is a farce.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And so that piece, I gave Chef Ludo Lefebvre his first speaking role as like an actor, and he went on. I always joke because like we don't keep in touch, but he did like an Apple commercial, and I messaged him on like whatever Twitter, Instagram, I can't remember at the time, and I was like, "Look, you're working with The Rock, but I gave you your first like acting gig," and he's like, "It's true, it's true." So, and then the star of Queer as Folk. And so all these people came on board to do this with me. And then like with Funny or Die, they were like, well, let's see, I don't know, whatever. And I was like, okay, and I'll just do it. And so then I did it, but then I used my PR skills and like did all the outreach. And so it ended up getting picked up on like Huffington Post, Eater, I don't remember, a bunch of other big outlets. And then from that, because of the way that all these algorithms work, like then Funny or Die started to see it, and then they featured it like on the main page. And
So you
so
got there
that,
anyways.
yeah, I got there anyways. And I got a ton of publicity from all these big outlets as well. And so then when I would be doing like outreach to try to do more of this kind of like straddling digital strategy and producing things, I would just use this as an example. And then if I had another win, I would use that. So then these started to build. Then eventually, like I had my first opportunity as like a producer. And I didn't have to just say like, oh, if you hire me, you get all these extra things.
Yeah.
So then I was like able to just like stand on my own as a, I was coordinating, I was doing anything that kind of was under like the production team.
Yeah, I would assume for PR that those skills are so transferable to producer, because in PR you're working with so many different entities. Like you could have a client, you could have a boss, you could have, you're working with maybe a design person. I mean, I really wouldn't know, but that aspect of connecting the dots and working towards that common goal and just making sure that everything is a tight package. That's totally what producers do. If for people that are not from the PR world, what are some of your main advice that like a normal person without training could do? Or do you have any advice about PR training?
Yeah, because it's so clear that like that's really helped you in terms of like just knowing how to sell your
Knowing
project
how
and
to
sell
craft
yourself.
an email,
Right.
knowing that actually gets a response.
Mhm.
Well, it's really interesting because I was just talking to a friend of mine who she's actually like one of my first friends I met in LA. And at this, like, it's such an LA, I won't even tell the story. It's like such an LA story of where we met. I'll just tell it really quickly. Like, randomly, somehow or other, I got invited to this party in Malibu, and it ended up being Juliette Lewis's birthday party. Like, I don't know any of these people. And like, so I go to this party, and it wasn't like a big, like 300 person party. I mean, it was like 100, and people are walking in with like giant, beautiful boxes from like Louis Vuitton and all these places for Juliette Lewis. And I obviously like I was there with my one friend who had come, but I was like, I don't why am I here? This is so crazy. Like, and this person was there as well as one other person. And so we've been friends, but she's stayed on the publicity track and has her own company and she's great. Really amazing woman owned publicity company. But I was talking to her not too long ago, and like because of things that have happened with like social media and bites and things like that, like people on the journalism side maybe are looking for things differently than maybe when I was doing it because of the way that we have like TikTok now and all these other things. But I will say that probably the most important thing and it maybe probably just goes for anyone that you're reaching out to is to like you need to if you think about how many emails we get every day and we're just
Yep.
like and then DMs and text messages and whatever a journalist is going to get probably what 50 times that amount because there's like everyone wants them to cover their widget or whatever their story is to
Mhm.
really, have like a standout subject line and then really make it spoon feed the person so that they're going to be like, "Oh, okay, like this is why it would make sense for me to put this story into an outlet that I work with." Because I think now also these outlets really are mindful about what kind of attention each story is going to get because they're also,
Mm.
selling space on their websites or their circulation or things like that. I think that that's really, you know, uh, and as well too, like even recently with Mill Valley, they asked me to put together a press kit, which I hadn't done in a really long time, and so I didn't realize like even though it's like a big file, like to put clips in and stills and trailer and the beats of what you're talking about. So it's almost like you don't want to send them like a full page of just text. You want it to be like easy to read and like, oh, here's where I can extract stills if I want it. Here's where I can extract a trailer if I want it. Here's where I can extract a little clip. And obviously like, disclosure, like I'm not a publicist and that's not the world. These are just like things that I've learned on some things from, many years ago when I was doing this.
Yeah, and things that you found that work for you,
Yeah.
totally. Is
Yeah.
there anything that you would say to obviously you've had success in the getting accepted as official selections to these major film festivals. Is there anything about submitting to film festival that you would give advice to people about?
For the most part, you're submitting through Film Freeway, which is like a conglomerate, which is really it makes it really easy. But I'd
Yeah.
say one of the things is there's other festivals besides Sundance, South by Tribeca, and the other big majors in the if you're trying for like a US. And sometimes you can get lost in the crowd. I sometimes and I'm speaking to shorts specifically, sometimes I've said like if you've never been to Sundance and it's you have a short and you don't have money for like publicity or support and maybe your film doesn't have a big star behind it, which also would be kind of like I feel like Sundance is going to push for those things, but it's hard to like rise above the noise, so to speak, right? And
Right.
sometimes, um, like I haven't been to a place like I haven't, and again, like I'm a newer director, so some of this is just like talking to other filmmakers as well, and that's really a good thing too. I would say is talking to other filmmakers because, as an example, and sorry, I'm veering off course for a second, but like
No, no, not at all.
Cordillera, which happens the like second to last week in September, which I had a film at last year, my other film. That awareness came about from somebody I know who was really generous and spoke to me about their experience. Now they had made an animated film and my films are live action, but they literally went so far as to like provide me a list of like, oh, we really liked, or I really liked these festivals. And then they, in this case, made an introduction for me to this programmer who was also really generous and also happens to champion shorts. And, you know, sometimes you find those people that really, or you find like a Palm Springs or an Aspen where it's specifically focused on short films. But like as an example, Cordillera, they're really generous because it's like a newer festival, and if you live with outside of a certain mileage, they'll cover your um lodging. They have like a filmmakers lounge that's right across from where they screen the movies that you can basically eat 3 times a day. They shuttle you to and
Oh my
from.
gosh.
Yeah, so it's usually it happens like 20, like 26, 27 September. That's when it's happening. Like I have a this year I have a like my one of my screenplay is a finalist in the screenplay competition. But just to go back, like when I went last year for the first time, there are people that just love that festival so much that they've gone like, and it's almost like they have a reunion. So when I got there, I had met someone on the flight and she knew the person that had introduced me who was also there, and like they had a group chat already. So they just like swooped me under into the group, and so it was really nice. I mean, I'm sad to miss it this year, but like
But
that's just
congratulations for being there again and having an official selection in there. And I love that feeling. That's kind of how we feel about the Burbank International Film Festival. We went 2 years ago as an official selection, and now we're moderating 4 panels of Q&As with the filmmakers in like the films by women blocks, and it's incredible.
yeah,
It's incredible when the film festival really cares about taking care of the filmmakers, which
yeah.
Cordera sounds like it definitely
Mhm.
does. They're, sounds like they go above and beyond to really recognize the official selections.
Yeah, above and beyond. And to my friend's credit, like I would have never known about this festival if this person hadn't shared it. So it's going back to what we were talking about before. It's like you creating a community, so to speak, and you having conversations with those people. You There's other festivals too that they've like they're like Cinequest I didn't really know about, and that's Oscar qualifying, and my film went
Mhm.
there last year. And I haven't been personally, but I've heard really great things on the short side from like Maryland Film Festival, and those come from conversations. And sometimes too it's like um there's two schools of thought. Like obviously if you have a film at Sundance or Tribeca or South by, and you can put the laurel up there and you can leverage that to get into other festivals. And you might not be the audience award winner or the festival award winner or whatever, but it's still going to open doors for you. But then also there's the other school of thought, or the other avenue, where it's like you go to a Seattle or a Cordillera or Miami or Mill Valley, some of these like second tier are in that world, and then you're like the
Mhm.
audience favorite, and then you can leverage that. So it's kind of like, I don't know, there's no right or wrong way, right? It's kind of like your path is your path, whether it's you obviously still, there's still this like prestige of these. And I'm obviously not a strategist or somebody who like buys films, but on the short side, I do think it's like um, because also some of these smaller festivals, especially on the doc side, from what I'm told, like some of these smaller festivals are Oscar qualifiers, and if you win, if you win that festival, then you're shortlisted. So you could be compete like you have less competition, right? Versus going to like a Sundance or a Tribeca where you're dealing with like Wes Anderson makes a short film, or Daisy Ridley or whatever. So sometimes maybe
Right, it's being a big fish in a small pond versus a small fish in a big pond. We're in a post for a short, and I just Googled Oscar qualifying film festivals, and the list is insane. It's so big, and you would never think like, yes, you think New York, London, Toronto, LA, but San Jose International Film Festival, Santa Barbara, Santa Fe, like you said, Seattle, St. Louis, New Orleans, Nashville, Hawaii's on here. Like I would have never even known about these film festivals, first of all. And it's not necessary. Like, yes, another hub is Atlanta. So of course, like that would make sense. But literally all over the States and internationally too, there are Oscar qualifying ones. So yeah, I think it's wonderful. I'm so glad that, that we all know about it now.
And also just for like the calendar year of like when you complete your film, like you might not want to wait because Sundance and South by, those like are happening now, right? The submission windows. And maybe your film doesn't, you don't get it to a place where you feel like you want to submit it. Which is a whole other, but then you could be like, oh, well, I could submit to, this is an Oscar qualifier and I could submit to this because I don't want to wait a year to find out that I submitted to Sundance, didn't get in. And then you also like lose that window of some, when people are asking you, when they say like, when did you submit? So you don't want to like wait 18 months either. So this is
Right.
another way. I mean, again, I think it's like personal strategy and personal decisions, but I think there might be like over 3 dozen US Oscar qualifying film festivals, right? So,
Yeah.
all to say, you don't you don't have to be limited to the majors.
Absolutely. When we spoke, when we were prepping for this episode, you are a multi-hyphenate writer, director, producer. And, something that you were saying is that you never know what's going to take. And you have so many projects. I mean, just looking at your bio, like recently you have 3 films that have been in recent film festivals. So how do you, organize all of it and keep those multiple fires burning? Or multiple pans on the stove? We're not great with the
I
metaphors.
don't know. Yeah.
Multiple plates spinning, whatever the saying is.
Oh yeah. I try to keep Excel files with like who I'm talking to and things like that. I
We
will
love it.
say Film Freeway has a really nice feature where you can add to the like watch notification. Like if you're like, oh, this festival is interesting, let's see if we get into these other festivals, because as you guys know, like it's very expensive to be like submitting to festivals all the time.
Yep.
So Film Freeway like kind of does it for you, and you just go on and you mark like on the watch notification. I think it's like binoculars or something, and then they'll just email you and say like, "Hey, this deadline is approaching," and then you can assess at that point. You'll be like, "Oh well." Oh, I don't think I need this festival, or I'm interested in this festival, or maybe like something's come up and you've waited because you were going to see if you got into these other festivals, and then if you do, that's always good leverage. And I do think that's warranted if you do submit, to reach out, because usually on Film Freeway there's like an email, and you could send an email, like you submit and then you send an email and say like, in your own words of course, but like, hey, I got into XYZ festival and I really like your programming and I'd love to be a part of it, and I'm letting you know that I submitted. Because I do think anything you can do to like say hi, virtually, is a
Mhm.
good thing. Because just as an example, the competition in Austin that we got accepted to, that's happening in the end of October, that script competition, there was like 11,000 submissions, and I think last year Sundance Shorts had like over 7,000 submissions. So
Wow.
anything you can do to get them to remember you, I think, is a good thing, in a good way. Don't do anything, don't don't do anything
If they're
bad.
private on Instagram, they're private for a reason.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
probably, going to their production company or their film's Instagram, or like you said, email or something like that is a better option.
Yeah, or be creative about it, but like try not to be canned, because they probably smell it a mile away. Like, you know, use your be personable. So,
Mm. So you produced for Hulu-ween. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. And actually, that experience was what led me to the first piece I directed called This Could Have Been an Email. So, Hulu-ween, it was 20th Century Digital as a part of Hulu, had this amazing initiative, and they would work with, I think, over a dozen filmmakers. And the mandate was like you had to deliver like 3 minutes and under, and it was a very tight budget, which usually would, in order to like make it work, you had to, it was like one day of filming, a couple locations maybe under the same roof. But uh that was a really great experience. The first year I did it, it was called Me and A, and it was really fun. And then the second year, I worked on a project called Bear Girl. And then a couple of the films that came into like the program, I think they went on to make features of them maybe. Then they would air those. They still might be on Hulu, I don't know. But then they would air them around the month of October for Halloween, and they'd call it
Mhm.
Hulu-ween. So it was
So
really
cute.
fun. Yeah, it was really fun. And then what happened was during that time, I have a co-writer, and we've been writing. We had been like trying to get things developed through talking to producers and pump companies, and um, maybe submitting to a competition here and there. But I don't know, we weren't really pushing in that direction. But I had this idea, and I said to Ellen, I was like, I could be directing one of these, and I have this point of entry. So let's write one. And this is the story idea. And so then we did it. And then I went back to them, and then they were like, and I still talk to some of those people that were a part of that at Fox, which was great because I was like, oh, I get to work with all these like people who work on shows like Deli Boys and all that. So that was really fantastic and a great door opener. But so then I went back to them, and I was like, hey guys, I like, knowing the program, and I've been trying to direct more and da da da. They were like, oh, that initiative doesn't exist anymore.
Mm.
That has gone away, which happens,
Yeah.
it was good. So then that project like went into a dormancy state for a while. So, but to go back to your question about like balancing it all, it's a juggle. And then sometimes some things just get a little more attention, or I like meet someone and they're interested in talking about something in particular of one of my, like maybe I meet someone and they come from, they're like they have a connection to a financier. So then it's like, okay, I have to like think about my projects that and kind of pivot and talk to them about that. But um it's a juggle, and there's time management, because you could just spend all your time doing like taking meetings, and I don't know, does that really move forward? Sometimes you
Right.
got to just like sit back and assess. And then sometimes too, like you just never know who you're going to meet. And I just try to be open minded, like anywhere, especially, I mean, I love LA. I don't think everyone loves LA, but I do love LA. But I also, like if I like to go to I don't know, you never know who you're going to sit next to. It's kind of, and it's just be open minded. And,
Yeah.
um, like, I think that's why I like going to events, and I think we talked about this when we were doing like the pre-interview of how sometimes I'm just like, do I want to drive to this thing? Like, oh God, I don't want to. And I usually, if it's like if it's a screening, I'll bring a friend because it's like you're just kind of sitting at the movie anyway. But if it's like a networking, I usually force myself to go by myself, because otherwise I feel like I've like gone all the way, and then I'm probably just going to talk to the person I'm with. And if I go
Mm.
by myself, I'm like forced to like, mingle and talk to people. And, sometimes it's just like, oh God, what am I doing? But then other times, and there's been times definitely where I'm like, okay, I've talked to one person. Okay, I'm good. I'm out of here. Like, I'm just not one of those people that like thrives on small talk and
Yeah.
meeting people. So, um, that's something that like that's another way I approach it too. I don't know.
No, that's a great tip. We talk
Mhm.
about networking and going to events a lot on this podcast because that's obviously how Jessica and I met. And I liked hearing about your mindset. Because we're of the opposite mindset, and we've talked about that a lot. Like if I went to an event by myself, like, oh, I've done it, but I do better with like me and Jessica like riffing off of
Yeah.
each other. We're like,
But I think
okay,
for us, it makes sense too because we do have a partnership and we both are doing, like, different ends of the spectrum where
opposite things.
right, I'm
Yeah.
writing, directing, and she's acting, and then obviously both producing, so it's a little bit more of like, "Oh, you need an actor? Look at my friend over here, she's great." It's not me,
Yeah,
it's her.
that's what it is. That's
Yeah,
what we're
we
able
talk
to
each other
like
up.
pump each other up. It's like, "Oh yeah, I'm not a writer, but here she is." But
Yeah.
I do really appreciate that because I think a lot of people will resonate, Jen, with what you said is like I
Mhm.
need to go alone because I need to be forced to talk to other people
Yeah.
than like the security blanket that I brought with me,
And
you
I
know?
will say I have gone to events with other people, and it's not been like how Mo and I do it, it's very much been where it's like we just
Yeah, it's about knowing
stand in the
yourself
corner together
and
and knowing
picking
the
the right
person you go with.
person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you go with.
Yeah, and like don't get me wrong, like sometimes I feel like I'm sitting there talking to someone and I'm just like, "Oh my god, I'm so awkward." And also because I have and going back to what you were talking about, like because I have a couple of different projects as different in different roles and I'm not in a big production company, sometimes I think people like have a short attention span, and so
Mm,
it's like sometimes you have to really quickly figure out how to kind of engage
Yeah.
or because they and it's not like a negative thing or a positive thing, it's just the way it is that sometimes people want to like classify you or like put you
Mhm.
into a silo, and if you cross that, and I do feel like because the like Lena Waiths and these people like her who are writer, director, actor, and there's a bunch of them, and they're kind of opening the door and they're getting people to be more like I know Janitska Bravo, and she's like a writer director, and then she starred in like Too Much, or with
mm.
Lena Dunham show. So there's like I think there's like a more familiarity and comfort with that, but sometimes people don't know when you're having a conversation, and sometimes to be honest, like if I'm at a depending if I'm at an event, sometimes I might just like only say I'm a director or only say I'm a producer, and like as that way, like for example, I was at this, oh, it was so good, the British Film Institute did this like amazing breakfast, and in the room was like the producer of it was like a brunch, and there wasn't that many people, it was very much like a pinch me moment, like how am I here, and they were talking about like all the tax incentives, but like the table over was like the producer from Conclave and spoke, and then the producer over here was like from Indian Paintbrush, who does like Wes Anderson's movies, and like in that
Crazy.
environment it was just better for me when I was initially like sitting next to people just to say I was a producer
Mhm.
Yeah.
because of like where I was, and then if it was like then if there was like they grabbed on or there was like time for a bigger, and
Yeah.
then they were like, well, what else are you working on, then I could like bring it
Yeah.
back, but
It's
I've kind of
almost like
learned.
yeah, just thinking of, like, an analogy of it, it's like whenever you're scrolling on Netflix trying to find something to watch, it's like if you give them everything that you are, they're like, "I don't know what to grab onto," but if you turn on, like, your cable for, like, f 5 channels, you have to pick something, and then from there, you can kind of explore a little bit more, but, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you can spend an hour talking about all the I don't know, just trying to pick something.
That's a such good note because this season is all about multi-hyphenates
Yeah.
and how do you market yourself. Jessica and we totally do that. We have a game plan for the night and it's like, okay, what's our objective? It's like, well, we really need this in this stage of development. So boom, that's what that this is what we're talking about. This is who we are. This is what we need. Like, let's hope that, we meet someone that we could be of service to or vice versa. And that's another thing too, Jen, about you and what I think makes you so genuine and authentic in the connections that you make, because obviously the connections that you've made span years and people
Mhm.
keep on coming back to you creatively and vice versa, is that you've said it before, like you ask people what they like and what they need, and you intertwine that in with what you're creating. And I think that that is so 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 important.
Mhm.
Well, thanks. I mean, I think too, like, uh, I want to work with good people, and I also feel like there's so many people that I see really working hard, and if I have an opportunity to like kind of sing their praises, like why not, right? And it's funny because I was just with my colorist who's done like our last two projects, and obviously, you know, the colorist relationship typically comes from your cinematographer, your DP, and that relationship. But um, this colorist has been really generous. His name is Walter Valpato, and I had to go over and see him for something this past week, and we were just talking, and I was like, oh, well, I can introduce you to this person and that. And he's like, see, Jen, you're still a producer at heart, you're just like making the connections.
Mhm.
So but yeah, I mean, you just want to, I always, you know, I think I mentioned this when we were talking earlier, like, you know, I always like to say an analogy is like a rising tide lifts all boats. And so, you know, for me too, it's like, uh, if I get an opportunity, like, you know, I'd love, there's like some shadowing opportunities that I'd love to be a part of, and I've said, you know, like truly if I get these opportunities, like I'm going to bring other people with me. I'm going
Mhm.
to like it helps me also open the door for others. Like I had I don't think it exists anymore, but Ava DuVernay and Justin Lin and then Eric Garcetti when he was the mayor had this organization called Evolve, and I had a mentee there, and she like I helped her. I was like she was up for this competition reality show for Fox, and I like was her reference, of course. But then she went on and she did that, like the first season, which was such a big, the live John Mulvaney show. And I was
Wow.
like, as a AP, and I was like, oh my, and you know, we're still close. And when I was, it was just like so rewarding to see that. I feel like the a mentorship's like a win-win. But when I was filming Your Night Is My Day, which is going to Mill Valley, which we talked about before, I shot it in New York and LA, and I was able to bring her on my production team, and my producer and then like my cinematographer, everyone was like, she's so great, which made me feel so good because, you know, I helped her in her development.
Yeah, you
Um,
picked a good person and it worked out and, kickstarted her journey for sure.
yeah. So that's always rewarding too. I mean, I just feel like when you even like, you know, I've been a mentee, but even when you mentor, you like gain a lot of things. And sometimes just because they're younger, like sometimes they teach you things. Like in this case, Kayleen, I feel like in some ways she's like a little bit of an old soul. And sometimes, you know, we now have like a friendship beyond just the mentorship. So,
Mm,
you know, it's just, I you know, I think a lot of what is working in entertainment, and to be honest, like it took me a minute to figure it out and I'm still figuring it out, but is like relationships, right?
mhm.
So I mean, uh even with us talking, you know, I was there was a podcast that was like available to me to that I could have talked about Mill Valley and things like that. And we talked about this, and I just didn't feel like it was a different demographic, and like the audience was massive, like in the millions. But I felt like when I don't know how we first connected, and then when we were talking, and I was telling my cinematographer this after we first met, and I was like, I don't know, I just feel like it's a better fit for a podcast to like that I want to be talking about my film. So sometimes it just like is about relationships, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I think it kind of goes back to when we were talking about like the Sundances versus like when we were, San Jose or Cordillera or things like that. Like,
Right.
uh, for me, sometimes it's more, and don't get me wrong, like I've worked in different capacities at Sundance. Like I did something for Hello Sunshine that launched there. And I have a lot of like love for Sundance, and I
Yeah.
just went to South by this year for the first time, even though I've been to Austin many times, and that was really fun. And I love those festivals, but also sometimes it's like uh when you get like it's not always about size, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like
Mhm.
there's more things to take into consideration.
Yeah, quality over quantity.
Yeah. Thank you for summing
And
that up,
we
Jess.
and we do not take that yeah, we do not take that
Yeah.
lightly. Thank you so much
Mhm.
for saying that. I literally wanna cry happy
So
tears. That was yeah,
I was not
thank you
allowed to
so
cry
much.
right now.
We take a lot of
Can
pride in this, and we love what we do, so with that, thank you.
Yeah, I
A
appreciate that.
few more
but
things before yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, and just like one more thing, what I was saying in the end, I was the other thing I was saying is like, and I was like, and I only talked to him for a little bit, but like honestly, I'd be happy to be like, let's go on a hike, let's go for a coffee or thing, And so
Definitely.
Do it.
anyway, yeah.
Definitely. Same. The
So
feeling is mutual for
Yes.
sure.
oh, good, okay.
Um, and you also so you were, commissioned on a series starring Erica Alexander of American Fiction and Get Out. How did that, transpire?
Sure. And let me just clarify too.
Please.
Okay, so I created a docu-series and I brought on a woman that I had known. So it's kind of a long story. When I first landed in LA, I had this friend and he worked in like he we're like friendly, and I think he was a cam op, and randomly he introduced me to like the executive producer showrunner of Laguna Beach. She was like the executive for Punked with Ashton Kutcher, like, and she's really
So
short.
fun.
She's super short and Ashton's like really tall. And so this story always, I love the story. Like they would have their like Monday morning weeklies, and she would like get on a chair. So she would be like eye to eye with Ashton, and he would like refer to her by her last name and whatever. Anyway, so I,
Such a
I had,
power move.
yeah. And she did like Greensburg, Kansas with Leo, and she's done like network approved showrunner for all these docuseries. And I like pitched her this show. I had no idea what I was doing, and I like was like, "Oh, I have this idea, blah blah blah." And then afterwards, like followed up with a thank you email, which you should always do, folks. People
Yes.
don't send enough thank yous. I even in some cases do handwritten thank yous to people. So I love cards. I love sending cards, but folks, like, send a thank you note. I cannot believe that people don't do thank you follow-ups. It's crazy. Even for me, like as a recipient, but whatever. Um and I messed afterwards. She was like, I sent that and she was like, "Oh, I think there's like something good here. Just, these are things to think about." I mean, I was so green. I had no idea. Like whatever. Anyway, during the pandemic, there was like this online event or whatever, and like her name was on it in some capacity. It was like you got paired with people. And so I just reached out to her and I was like, "Oh, long time, blah blah blah." And then we ended up reconnecting after all that time. I guess it was like 4 years. And then I don't know, I had been like working, there was this idea and I'd been talking about with some people and whatever. And then her and I were like, we should do something. And we came up with like a number of different ideas. And then this one kind of, from that time to like where we are now, that show has changed dramatically. It was like much different in the beginning. And then we had a couple different potential folks that we wanted to host. One was like from the Food Network that we talked to a bunch. One had like a very famous restaurant in New York City. And for one reason or another, it just never came together. And then we would kind of like let it sit for a minute. And I kind of drove that side of it a lot. And then I met at a random event. It was actually a PGA event, but I met Erica Alexander because she was wearing a shirt from a show that my friend shot. And I didn't really know that she was in the show, which was whatever. But we ended up talking, and then she has a production company that she's had for many years. And he was there, her partner. And so then we just kind of kept in touch loosely. And then him and I were on a call, and I was like, yeah, I've got this show, whatever. He's like, oh, that's a good idea. And he is super generous. And he was like, let me take it. If you want, I can put it in front of this company and this company, because I think they might be interested. I was like, sure. Meanwhile, I have a manager, and he reps that show. And so like we were, talking to people and things like that. And then one day, that kind of wasn't going anywhere. And then one day I was like thinking about it, and I was like, why haven't I thought of this before? And I went back to my friend who was the executive, and I was like, what do you think about Erica hosting this? And she was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I talked to Ben, and I was like, that's her partner. And they said, I have this thought. And I was like, would Erica be open to like taking on this role? Because I think she would be really great. Because Erica is like I always say she's strong but soft. And so he was like, oh, it's interesting you say that, because after she did her American Fiction press tour, she realized that she really likes like that. When she did all these talk shows, she like really likes that element. But to do a talk show is like a big commitment, and she's a busy actor. She's got this, like right now they're halfway through, but she's doing it's a Tina Fey, it was picked up, it's a series order, but it stars her, Tracy Morgan, Daniel Radcliffe, Bobby Moynihan. And like it would be really hard for her to do that. And she's in Invasion this season with Apple, and she's got this like Living Single reboot. I'm like doing press for Erica now. Anyway, we can tell Erica that, because why not? She's on the Michelle. I just found this out last night because it was sent to me. Erica is on the Michelle Obama podcast like right now. If you go on however you find the Michelle Obama podcast, like today, I think it was the 25th, it aired.
We're gonna link it.
We're like 4 beats removed from Michelle Obama right now. It's pretty crazy.
Day made.
Like, if Erica comes into town, you can touch her and like, but Erica actually, she's very political. Like she's done a lot of campaigning, and she was a producer on that fantastic, I think this is right, you guys are going to have to fact check me, on that fantastic John Lewis documentary, Good Trouble. Did you ever see that?
Oh, wow. So
yeah. So anyway, so Ben was like, oh yeah, Erica was like talking about how she likes this element, blah, blah, blah. So like, let's all get on a Zoom and talk about it. And so we got on the Zoom. Erica like got the concept right away and just like ran with it and was like, yes, blah, blah, blah. And then our rep, well, he, through his job of like having relationships and talking to people, he, and with his contacts at Macro, they had an initiative. And so then they financed the sizzle for us.
Wow.
And then they took us to South by this year, which was really fun.
Really cool.
And now we own the sizzle, and we have the sizzle, and now we're out shopping it. So
amazing.
And randomly, I have a call this afternoon, if potentially, like we talked to him last week about, I don't know, there's things like, who knows? We're getting there's some energy around it. So
we're keeping our fingers and arms and legs crossed for you.
Thanks. Sure. But the sizzle was really amazing because Erica has been in the business for a long time, and Erica is like really fantastic. It's kind of amazing if you like walk through the airport. Erica's like no fuss. And I've worked with a lot of A-list celebrities, like no fuss. You walk through the airport and like people, and Erica's interesting because like she was on the Cosby Show. Like we don't need to talk about that. We don't need to mention that name, but she, and then Living Single, and she was in Get Out, and uh, American Fiction and Wu-Tang, and so people have these different like connection points with Erica.
Mm-hmm.
And if like we were walking through the airport in Austin, and these women would just come up and be like, "Is that really you?" And then like hug her and want to talk to her. And so I always
Oh.
say, but like if you get Erica mad, you can definitely like see the, so I always say like strong but soft, which is nice. It's like a nice, and she says she likes that. But because Erica, she has like this people, she's been in the industry a long time, and she's a super genuine person. And she basically, like, between her and then, like, Erica asked Danielle Brooks, and Danielle Brooks did our like pilot sizzle. And then I actually had met at through people at South by. I met Dwayne Perkins, who's in the studio. He plays Catherine Hahn's assistant. I asked him if he would do it. And these are people that are just giving us like hours of their time. It's basically they're getting something, but it's not like, it's a pilot sizzle docuseries.
Yeah, it's not good.
And then it turns out that like when I told Dwayne that Erica was involved, he was like, "Oh my God, we tried to get a pilot up years ago, whatever." And then my star of Your Night Is My Day is Benjamin Earl Turner, and he was in Blind Spotting, and he's from the Bay Area. And so David Diggs and like Rafa Casal are kind of like big brothers to him. And so I asked Benjamin if he could connect me with Rafa, and Rafa like texted me within 5 seconds because he was like, "Oh my God, I love Erica. Like, I would just love to like sit and, uh, you know, talk with her and eat. Like, that's amazing." So yeah, of course. And then Benjamin was telling me like, "Oh yeah, like we've talked about Erica before, blah, blah, blah." So all to say, like, Erica's like, reputation, and then the fact that calling on like through relation, it was like a combination of all these great things that
Mhm.
made it happen. And also too, like, I think if Benjamin didn't have a good experience with me on Your Night Is My Day, like he would have never opened the door to Rafa. So
Right. Yeah, it's good people working with good people. Like once you find people that, you gel with, that you connect with, that are professional and do a good job, we tend to hold on to those people and want to work with
Yeah.
them again and again.
I do have
yeah,
a question in terms of your reps. When did you get repped, and what capacity did they rep you in? Or are you repped in?
it's a manager.
Right.
I have a manager, and uh well, funny, it was like, I think I got to this person through my network exec that I mentioned. And when I
Mhm.
first early on, I was like, "Will you be my manager?" And he'd like kind of whatever. And then now, like about a year ago or whatever, um, it was like then it was like more official, and it's just good for. It really helps if you're doing, like uh for submissions and things like that, to
Mhm.
have like a manager on the email for
Yeah.
sure. Um, and he is really interesting because he was an agent, and then I mean it's more common now, but he also went to law school, and he's like crazy smart. So that's really nice. Like he went to Georgetown Law. He's a smarty pants. So that's and he's very good at like top level broad strokes, and sometimes I feel like I get caught up in the details and don't look like big picture. So he's and if he really, it was his relationship that opened the door for Macro to you know kind of get involved when we were making the sizzle. Like that was
Mhm.
definitely him. And it was great because people are interested in what Macro is doing for sure, because
And he
they're
repped you in terms of, like, writing, directing, and producing? Like, it's, like, all of it, like, a full package of who you are?
right now, I mean, he's just my manager.
Yeah.
So, I mean, typically, like, I don't know, most like you don't really sign anything for
Right.
a manager. It's just
Mm.
unsigned. So it's not
Mhm.
like an agent. But having an agent would be a great thing because one of the things that I don't have is like understanding or getting dibs on like OWA, like open writing assignments
Mhm.
or directing opportunities. So if there's any agents out there listening, I'm putting out a call. Get me now while you can. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, no, for
No,
you and Jessica
actually.
both. Yeah. Literary agents, we are taking submissions, both Jen and Jessica.
Yeah.
Even like to rep me on as a director on the commercial side, because I've done a number of
Oh,
those
yeah.
things too. So,
Mhm.
Totally.
um, anyway,
Before we
so
get
like
yeah.
so that's like how the project came about with the relationship with macro. And sorry, I know that like all of my projects seem to have like long stories behind them, but
They're
like
That's how
fascinating.
it
they
is.
also
Yeah.
take a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
we have Ellen and I have written a bunch, there's it takes, I don't know. Even when you see an actor and someone's like, that person appeared overnight, it's like, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
You just haven't noticed them.
No, it's very realistic of like, well, we tried here, that didn't work out. We tried there, that didn't work out. We met this person, they tried it, and then that worked out, but then something else happened. No, it's very
No,
realistic. It's nice to hear it versus like just being like, oh, I just met the right person at the right time randomly this one Tuesday afternoon, which may be part of the story, but there's like so much more beyond that.
yeah,
So,
no, we really appreciate you taking us through the journey.
yeah.
We really appreciate it.
The journey
Um,
continues.
the
It
journey
never
continues.
stops.
We had another major question because this is something that, we are tackling very soon. Do you have any advice about talking to financiers and sending those emails? Of course, there's a lot of research and, you know, analytics that go into the information that they need to know because they want to make sure that they're going to be able to make their money back. But how do you ask for money and then how do you go back and ask for more money? Because I know you've done both and you've been successful at it.
Well, that's on the short side, and I'm currently trying to raise on the feature side, but I'm also trying to bring on a producer who I have one producer in particular who's reading it, who have worked with recently, who I hope will come on board
I
because the
will say
last
though, with the shorts, it's still like really hard to get. I mean, I know it's like a smaller amount of money technically, but you're typically not making money off of shorts.
no,
So it's
you're
like, yeah,
yeah.
so even that's like hard to like sell that.
Okay, so how that came about was and I did not do any crowdfunding. I just didn't. That's like a full-time job. I've done that in the past for other people and been successful, but that was like many, many years ago. And I feel like that whole world has changed so much I wouldn't know what to do. But what happened was I had a project as a producer that I had uh been involved in, and a friend of mine con- connected me with somebody, uh, and they were interested because they had a personal tie to the theme. And then that project, like many projects, like got really far and then fell apart. And I kind of felt to myself, I was like, it's another project where I feel like I have the vision and I could direct this, but like I don't have the ownership and I can't do that because that would be really bad karma. But maybe, and I put it away and then was like thinking about just I wasn't thinking about the project. I was thinking about that I had had this pattern of like aligning with these directors and really shepherding the projects besides kind of their idea. And then when it got to like when I got to a point where there was either like gonna be money, because it had happened a number of times, that maybe I should rethink this because a nobody is ever going to, if it's your project, like you have to come to grips with the fact that like nobody's ever going to care about it as much as you are. Nobody's ever going to work as hard. Like even if you have a great producer, whatever, you're always, if it's your thing, you're going to champion
Yeah.
it so much more. And like you can't take that personally. And B, I was like, well, why what is this about? And then I was like, well, it's because I want to be directing, and I can, like, I have I have this vision. And so I, sometime later, I went back to that financier and I was like, would you be willing to give me, like, I think it was a quarter of the money. I don't know. It was a very small amount. And they were on board. And so then they gave the money. And then I just was I was really upfront about it. I was like, I just want to be clear, like, the likelihood is slim to none that you will make any profit on this. You will, like, I hope this is like my plan, and this is what I want to have happen, and we're going to try to submit for these things, but you're not going to see an ROI. It's very unlikely that you're going to see an ROI on a short. But they took a chance. They were really happy because we shot it in December, and my amazing editor, who did so much more, he did so much VFX. It turned out that project turned out to have, because there's so many, like, screens in it and notifications, because she's, like, bombarded when she's sitting at her desk, and it was all VFX, and he had to do so much work, poor guy. And he was, like, leaving for Australia. So we that thing ran through post so quickly. Like, we shot it like a week before Christmas, where everything died, and it was, like, done in mid to late February. I think we locked it.
Wow.
And considering the amount of, like, the notifications and VFX, which was all, like I said, he had to do all of that. None of it was shot practically. It was really, I mean, it was short, and it's really not a ton of locations, but he just worked his ass off. So, and I was just, like, really, I kept her really in the loop with things. And then that film just ended up getting into festivals, and I, just built a relationship with that person. And then I had this idea. Ellen and I were supposed to be working on something, and then we just started talking about how there were so many reboots and remakes and things like that. And so then her and I were watching Gremlins 2 on the Key and Peele sketch, which you haven't seen. You have to watch it. It's so funny. They're, like, so ahead of the curve. They were, like, making fun of reboots and remakes well before we got so many, like, reboots and remakes. But we like, inspired by Key and Peele, we made a kind of like, it's like a side by side of a farce on what it might have been like, from a funny point of view, like, when they were, like, conceiving a Fight Club, and then what it would be like if some executives, like, at a streaming company, some very young executives were kind of trying to figure out a way to remake Fight Club. And so that one was interesting because it was, like, it was a really quiet time, and my cinematographer, like, I think he had just wrapped a series or whatever, and so I was like, let's just do this. It'll be one day, and it's just 2 office locations. So I know that's, like, pretty straightforward for you. So, like, what would help to mix it up for you? Like, thinking maybe he'd want to shoot on a new camera. And when I say no budget, like, I think I had $5,000 for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, what if we shoot in a volume? Because I think this guy has a volume, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I immediately was, like, freaking out. I can't shoot in a volume. I've barely directed it. Blah, 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 this and that. And so sure enough, like, I sat back because this happens, and he, like, presents something, and I freak out, but then I think about it, and it, like, totally helps me grow as a director. And I'm so grateful for that collaboration and the trust. And he, like, made a few calls that didn't go anywhere, and then I was like, well, let me see if I can find a volume. And I ended up meeting these guys, and they were super cool, and they were really interested in what we were doing, because we were making something kind of opposite what everyone wants to do in a volume. Like, everyone wants to just make these, like, fantastical worlds, and I was like, can we make a really basic, like, 1997 office space? And they were interested because they were like, nobody asked us. And now my project is, like, on their reel, but they ended up, like, giving us the volume and the everything for free.
Wow.
It was amazing. And so we shot that, and that I went back to the financier, asked for a teeny bit of money, like not even all the money. And then that I put on the web just for fun, just to like have another piece of content that I created. And then this website called We Short found me and we're like, we do paid distribution deals. And I was like, I mean, always assuming that you're never going to see anything. Maybe it's a bad way to look at things, but like my short is on We Short now, so I can say it. It has. I haven't been paid from a distribution deal, but technically it has a paid distribution deal.
Hey, that's something.
Yeah. So you could be any day. Today could be the day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Today could be the day, you never know. But it's like there's also like Oscar winning shorts on that. So it's like just about being in that company.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
absolutely.
And then from there, I continued the relationship. The first film, this could have been an email, kept getting into festivals like around the world, kept in contact with my financier. And then Your Night Is My Day, Ellen and I were talking about it, and like that had made it through into the semis as an episodic. But when we wrote it as Italy, because I love Italy and New York as our two character locations. And I knew that, unless I was going to try to like find financiers in Italy, which seemed like a long, long road, we needed to change it. And I also like love LA and I love New York. And I feel like so many people, it's like an or, and for me, it's an and, even though they're very different. And so and along with Ellen, we changed the story and we made a short. And then I went back to my financier and was like, I want to shoot this. And it was a bigger ask. And she's like said, send over, all the things you normally do. And I sent them over and she agreed to it. And I was stoked and kind of blown away. And then I was like talking to my cinematographer about the whole thing and saying how I had already been starting to scout and finding some places in downtown LA that felt similar to like Midtown. And he was like, well, Jenna, it would be really great if we could at least shoot the exteriors in New York. And my normal response was, we can't do that. We don't have the money. We barely have the money for this. Da, da, da. And then I sat and thought about it for a minute. And I was like, okay, I hear what he's saying. And the worst thing I can get is a no. So I asked and I got the money to shoot the exteriors in New York. I guess the lesson too is I need to stop being so reactive, but it's like the process, right?
Yeah.
No,
you got to have
great.
that. So as we're wrapping up, let's talk about Your Night Is My Day and, it premiering over at Mill Valley.
Yeah. And it has a original never before track from Benjamin. Benjamin's also a musician. He's a poet. He's also a multi-hyphenate. I mean, he's from the Bay Area. I feel like it goes without saying, but we were doing the edit and I had this like as a placeholder, this amazing Anderson .Paak song from his Tiny Desk series. So Anderson .Paak, if you're hearing this, like feel free to like give me the rights to use the song because it is an amazing moment in the montage. And I was talking with my composer, who I've worked with a couple of times, Tom Ryan, and he was like, yeah, I feel like, we were having a hard time. And he was like, yeah, we need someone with vocals. And I was thinking about it. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, Benjamin is a musician. Like, what am I thinking? So I went through all of his discography and I like found a song and I said to Tom, I was like, what do you think about this? And so I went back to Benjamin and I was like, can I use this? I just want to use this like one section and then we're going to kind of remix it into original track. And he was like, sure. So the movie has an original Benjamin Earl Turner track in it. Very excited. And it's these two lovely actors are my stars. Benjamin is mentioned, and then Ava Haas. And Ava is a Cal Arts graduate. I think she graduated in 23. So she's like a newer actor, already repped at Zero Gravity. And she's really lovely. And for me, I wanted somebody, it was one of the things that was really important was that they could give us like an Italian accent. Like an Americanized Italian accent because she plays an Italian who's like lived in LA. And she nailed it. And funny is my colorist Walter Volpato, also Italian, and so when he saw it, he gave the thumbs up. So when Walter gave the thumbs up, I was like, okay, I'm not. No Italians are going to be mad at me for this. And um, like it's a modern love story about two people that are very different, but I think in our lives today, so much of what we do is like through screens. And I think that, in many cases, that's how people meet. And I, th- I feel that, technology has pros and cons. And one of the things that definitely is a con is the polarity that it's created and how people are so quick to, like, people say swipe, but it's also just like turn somebody off or switch to the next, and the like blossoming and building of relationships in any form, just people seem to have like lost, I don't want to say patience because that's not the right word, but give it a chance. And so a lot of the story is about these two people that like on paper are so dramatically different, and even, come out, they almost come out like at each other from the very beginning. I mean, they kind of do, come out fighting with their gloves on. And then eventually they really end up supporting each other and realizing that like their differences are a positive, and their differences are beneficial to be with each other versus animosity and going against each other. And, maybe some other things happen. Maybe, like I'm not going to give everything away, but um, I think it's so easy these days to like, you just like people will hear the smallest thing about somebody, or maybe it's not even a person, it's a thing or whatever, and they just turn it off immediately. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
so these chances are less fleeting. And then, these folks like they're like they're like having their worlds, but like building a world and like a connection together. And I think that's really nice too, like that slow build, because I mean, I've probably been victim of it in the past, and plenty of people where you meet someone, you think like, oh, I like, oh, he's a great guy, is like would be a great partner, and then you spend way too much time together way too fast, right? And so because these folks are um they're not able to like be in the same geographical area, like they also, there's like this like natural build, which I
Mhm.
feel like doesn't always happen if you're, also just like in your dating these days, you could like, if someone's like very like busy on social media, like all the things that they're doing, and there's like no surprises. And like part of having a relationship or building a romance with somebody is like having some surprises, and so that's a part of it too. So I was really fortunate, like I said, to be filming part of this. I filmed the exteriors in New York, and the we had the best day. We just walked, like we scouted it, my cinematographer and I, and it was just such a fun day walking all over. Like we I think the furthest we weren't, it was like 12th Street and like lower. I mean, everything was down in the Lower East Side for the most part. It was like West Village and Lower East Side. And um, like we shot a really nice scene on Crosby, and then down in Center Place, all over the city. It was so great. It was so
Mhm.
much fun. We had a really great time. And then just because of like finances and things like that, we shot all the interiors and then all of Josh's exteriors in his living here in LA. And I did a ton of research and found this amazing, you've probably driven by it a million times. There's an apartment building on Wilshire. It's like Wilshire and Ardmore. And it's this beautiful old apartment building. It's people live in it still to this day, but it has like all this old Hollywood history. And if there weren't palm trees in the courtyard, it would easily play for like a New York apartment building. But Randolph Hearst lived there at one point, and there's this 2-floor apartment, and that was like one of my biggest expenses. And they were super nice, and it has like beautiful parquet floors and this like beautiful wood paneling that definitely feels like New York. And so we shot Kiara's apartment scenes in that beautiful, beautiful space.
I
So
Amazing.
love that. Such a
Yeah.
good location to be aware of in LA, that
Yeah.
it's there. Well, Jen, we're going to link everything below about how people can buy tickets, because after this airs, they'll be able to buy tickets, and it's premiering this weekend at Mill Valley Film Festival.
Yes.
Thursday night
Woo!
shorts program. Thursday night. And so exciting. I'm really excited to like head up to Marin. I think it's going to be a beautiful time of year. And I'm excited to see the other shorts that Mill Valley has programmed me with. That's always exciting.
Yeah.
And honestly, like film festivals are the best. They're so much fun. It's like adult camp.
Oh, I feel the same way,
Yeah.
100%. Well, Jen, honestly, you're such a lovely person. Thank you so
Amazing.
much for coming on the pod and speaking with us. We're so excited that we know you
Mhm.
now, and to have heard your journey. And all the things that you've done and all the things that you're continuing to do. It's
And
really
keep us
great.
updated so we can keep shouting you out with all the success. We
Yes.
love it.
Yes.
Absolutely. You can follow Jen on Instagram at the Jen Sall and visit her website for updates at www.thejensall.com. Nice and easy. We've also linked that into the show notes and a link to purchase tickets for her world premiere of Your Night is My Day at the Mill Valley Film Festival later this week.
So thank you so much to all of our listeners, and go get set.
Well, guys, thank you so, so much for having me on. It was so great. And I am so excited to have met you and loved every second of this and can't wait to just like hang out and hear more about what's happening. And I just really appreciate the support. All the questions were so interesting. Like I'm now just thinking about my journey, and I really hope that for anyone listening that this was helpful to you. And thanks again.
Yeah. We're happy that
Thank
you've,
you.
used us as your first podcast, and now you have your talking points for all the
So
other.
honored.
I'm
Yeah.
getting emotional. I was like starting to say, like, I was like, oh my God, am I going to break? I was like thinking about it. I was like, thank you. I hope this helps people. And then I'm like, I'm getting a little misty eyed about the whole
Aw.
thing.
It will for sure
Oh.
help people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's already helped us. It's already helped
Yeah.
2 people, so I'm sure there'll be plenty more.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Even if
Thank
I
you,
just
thank
help
you.
one person, you know?
Yeah,
But you guys are
Absolutely.
helping me too. So works both ways.
we love it.
Mhm.
The
So,
rising tide lifts all ships.
Yes.
yes. So thanks a lot, guys. This was a lot of fun.